speaker is Shaykh Ramzy. Shaykh Ramzy is the co-founder of Risalah Foundation and its resident scholar. He's the visionary of Masjid Bond and served as the project chairman from March 2017 to April 15, 2018, which is the first mosque in the city of Bonn, and he celebrated its inaugural opening. His classical training in Islamic sciences started in the early 90s with the scholars of Damascus, Syria, alongside his colleagues Imam Zaid Shafi and Dr. Wali Mossad and other luminaries. He's the co-author of the Revealed Path series for new Muslims and has contributed extensively to the development of leadership initiatives for teens and teacher programs for Muslim educators and prophetic pedagogy. He teaches regularly at Risalah Foundation and has been instrumental in countering violent extremism through his continued work in chaplaincy and correctional institutes throughout Canada. Just another announcement for all the brothers and sisters that have questions. During the talk, when the question is fresh in your mind, write it down. When the Urdu translation is going on, inshallah, there will be brothers and sisters walking around and you can pass on the questions during the Urdu translation. So as soon as that question comes to your mind, please just write it down, and then when the Urdu translation comes, you can just put up your hand and someone inshallah will, or you can pass on your question and someone will receive that question. And also, all the question answers will happen after Asr Salah, so if you need another piece of paper, you can also raise your hand and inshallah you get another piece of paper. If you need a pen, likewise. So now I'd like to call upon Shaykh Ramzy.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا عليم اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم واكرمنا بنور الفهم وسهل اخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم واجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون احسنه وبعد. My dear sisters, mothers and daughters, Shaykh, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great honor and privilege to be here. Thank you for the invitation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit us in these few minutes that we have together. Inshallah, just to outline what we'll address, inshallah, is the topic I was asked to speak about was mental health and Tasawwuf. So just to outline, hopefully what we can accomplish in 20 minutes is just to discuss in a nutshell what is mental health exactly. Because our community has embraced this discourse and we have to understand its background, where it's coming from, and the framework and the foundations of mental health, especially in a Western secular context. Number two is what is missing from the mental health discourse in this context, this secular context. Number three is what is Tasawwuf? Do we have something that's equivalent that addresses the issues that mental health discourse addresses? And why haven't we as a community resorted to this body of knowledge of Tasawwuf if it is 1/3 of our faith, as we will speak about. Number four is what we need to actualize Tasawwuf practically in our lives, and how should we view critically the mental health discourse through our principles and values and tradition of Tasawwuf. Inshallah, so with the first topic, what is meant by mental health? Mental health. Health, I don't think, needs a definition. I think we can just say it's well-being. It's well-being. In terms of mental health, what we're talking about is something of the mind. If it's mental, it's of the mind. And the mind in Western philosophy is a set of cognitive faculties, including your consciousness, your perception, your thinking, your judgment, even your language. There's a hidden language before speaking, and your memory. This is what is mental, the world of the mind. So it holds the power, the mind, of imagination, recognition, appreciation, and it's responsible, that faculty is responsible for feelings, for emotions that result in certain attitudes and behaviors and actions. Now this is from a Western secular perspective of what mental or of the mind and its faculties relate to. So this generalization of the mind and mental in the past, even in the English language, was never, mind meant something that referred to memory. Mental referred to memory. So then I think it was in the 14th century, it extended, it broadened the definition of mind and mental, included all of these cognitive faculties that we mentioned. This is important to understand. So if we understand what mental is and understand what health is and put these two together, we can say, again, from the secular Western perspective, that mental health is a level of psychological well-being, or an absence of mental illness. And the psychological state of someone who is functioning at a satisfactory level, we would term as being mentally sound and healthy. Now, there's a few questions, of course, that come up. Who defines what is a satisfactory level of well-being? There's a few observations just based on what we just mentioned from an Islamic point of view. Number one is that consciousness, perception, thinking, judgment, language, and memory are all part of this mental health discourse, but they are reduced to the mind. In the end of the day, in secular Western approach, all of these things are reduced to the mind. And if you ask the question, well, what is the mind? They will reduce it to chemical and biological phenomena. And they may reduce it to neurons, which is interesting. So the mind in Western thought connotes, whether we like it or not in language, it connotes the psyche, a sort of artificial reality. It's not real, right? This is why we say it's all in your mind. It's not real. It's all in your mind. Or they say it's a mind over matter. So that's interesting, because we're supposed to take mental well-being really seriously. And if we reduce it to the mind and neurons and chemical and biological phenomena, then we have this conundrum of, well, how do we really take this very seriously? In our tradition, it's actually completely different. The perspective is different, and we'll mention how so. So in Islamic thought, for example, so in Western thought, the heart of the human being is the mind. In Islamic thought, consciousness, perception, thinking, judgment, language, and memory belongs to an-nafs, the soul. Not nafs as an ego. These are interchangeable. The nafs is the soul, the very self, the heart of the human being. An-nafs. So even if we translate mental mental health into Arabic, it doesn't work. You can't really translate it. And the way it's translated, which is pretty good nowadays in modern Arabic, is as-sihhatu an-nafsiyya. As-sihhatu an-nafsiyya, like literally the well-being of the self. The well-being of the self. Isn't that interesting? So there's the mind and then there's the self. So in Islamic thought, the thing that observes, the entity within that says I, me, is not the mind, it's an-nafs. It's the self. The thing that is observing and feeling is the self, is the very self. So immediately it's very personal. It's very real because it's the self that's feeling this pain or this pleasure or this struggle, or it's the self that is not seeing things as they really are. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ, for example, made this dua, Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqa. Show us, show me, show the self that which is true as it really is true, and show me that which is false as it really is false. So it's the observer, the self. So the self in the Islamic tradition is the center of the human being, nafs, and it is also what we call al-qalb as well. It may be referred to as al-ruh, but when the ulama Tasawwuf use al-ruh is referring to a more transcendent self that is behind this other self. Right? It is a more transcendent and pure self. It is the real identity. It is not the identity that came about through one's upbringing and nurture, but it is rather the pure self, the unadulterated self of ruh. These are all, in fact, one reality. You know, Imam al-Ghazali had mentioned that what's the difference between nafs and qalb and so on and so forth. And he mentioned that this is all one reality, and that depending on the correlation of one's secret, one's transcendent self, it acquires a particular name. For example, if the spirit, if the self relates to knowledge and thinking and making judgments and conclusions, then we call that entity al-aql, the intellect. And if the self, this mysterious celestial light that has different correlations, when it correlates to the appetites and carnal desires, it is called al-nafs, the ego. The ego. Nafs here means ego. It's interchangeable. Okay? And when it corresponds, that secret corresponds to the body in terms of its being alive, it is called al-ruh. Al-ruh, it's sometimes called al-ruh. And when that secret correlates to spiritual matters and profound realizations and understanding, it is called al-qalb. Like we heard the Shaykh mention, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts by which they understand not. Okay, so it's all one reality depending on its connection, correlation. A nafs, a soul or spirit that is just simply turned to the world and fulfilling the immediate appetites and desires. This is the reality, unfortunately, of many people. And they know nothing of their true identity or self, because they're constantly seeking happiness through that correlation. So all they know of the self is the nafs, the ego. So when we talk about mental health and we compare it to tasawwuf, we should really be careful, right? In the past we used to be careful of the Sufis. Be careful of the people of mental health, right? That's what you should be careful of, because the tasawwuf in our tradition has been a documented science from the beginning. So there are generations and generations of mastery in the science of tasawwuf. And we'll talk about what it is. What is tasawwuf? If you haven't heard of it before, or how should we proceed it? Mental health, this whole discourse of mental health is coming from a pagan, secular, Judeo-Christian framework. It doesn't, there's truth in it, there's some truth in it, but they're still trying to figure it out. And so there are certain questions that we have to ask about mental health and this whole discourse about mental health. Number one is, does the mental health that we are being exposed to and that everyone's talking about, does it account for God? It's a question. Does it account for the unseen, the angels? Does it account for the messengers and saintly people? Like, is that included in the discourse? Does it account for the true nature of who we really are? Al-Ruh. And that Ruh is transcendent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we breathe into him, our father Adam, the Ruh. And the first teacher of our father, Adam alayhi salam, was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allama Adam al-asma'a kullaha. So Adam was taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all of the realities. And so there is an innate knowledge in this Ruh that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed Bani Adam with. What about the afterlife? Does mental health take into account life after death? Does it? Doesn't it? Does it take into account our origins of who we are? Are we merely, animal? And what distinguishes the human being from other creatures? And what is the reality of the human being? Does it take into consideration a shaitan? Shaitan is real. It's real. Shaitan is real. Does it take into consideration the devil? No, it doesn't. Does it take into consideration ma'asi, sins, disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and its effect on the psyche and the heart? Does it take into consideration the effects of sin? As the Prophet ﷺ said, every time you sin, there is a stain on the heart. And the heart, what is it? It's a faculty of perception. Imagine you get a stain, or a foreign object goes into your eye. It blurs your vision. You can't operate function. It impairs your life. So what about this heart? And how much how much rust, and how much dirt has accumulated on our hearts, that we have hearts that we don't understand, we don't see things as they really are anymore. It's very dangerous. Does it take into consideration obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the effects of obedience, and the effects of reading the Quran, and the effects of keeping good company, and the effects of wudu, and the effects of fasting? Does it keep into, and the effects of prayer? Does mental health take into consideration these things? Does it take into consideration at-tawbah and what repentance is? The Prophet ﷺ said about tawbah, التائب من الذنب كمن لا ذنب له, أو كما قال, the person who repents from sin and error is like someone who has no sin and no error. So these are questions. And I think the answer, really, it's an easy answer, right? No, 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 no. Mental health in secular framework, Western secular Judeo-Christian framework, does not take into consideration these things. So then, hence, I'll just jump ahead. This is not a plug-in, but you can imagine the importance now of having people who are trained in mental health who are Muslims. But not just Muslim by name, but they understand the tradition. So, for example, the Khalil Center, and what they're doing is groundbreaking work. Because this is an area that people are still trying to figure out. And now, if we have scholars and learned people of this land, of this mentality, who can kind of come and bring the two together and remove what is harmful and establish a new framework that is authentic, that is beneficial, inshallah, not just in this world, but in the next. That is really, truly an amazing feat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give Khalil Center and Brother Imam Omar Tawfiq, inshallah ta'ala, in that. So there are some difficulties, as we mentioned. And maybe perhaps we won't be able to get to the last topic because we're running out of time, but on Tasawwuf. But let's just discuss some of those difficulties right now, just so concretely, because we're talking about two abstract ideas. We're talking about mental health and we're talking about Tasawwuf. But let's just talk about mental health considering what it's missing and pose the following questions. Who defines, number one, what a satisfactory level of emotional and behavioral adjustment? Who defines what that is? How do we find concrete examples? How do we define guilt? There's a lot of talk about guilt, regret, shame, fear. When are these warranted? Just these four: guilt, regret, shame, fear. These are all things that, generally speaking, in the mental health discourse in Western secular society, these are negative things. Generally, negative things. Who or when are these warranted? When are they praiseworthy? Because these characteristics can be praiseworthy. When are they blameworthy? So, example. Take, for example, someone who has a habit that is not illegal, specifically in Canada. Nor is it harming anyone. It's not harming anyone. But it's causing the individual a great amount of guilt. And that guilt is impairing his or her daily behavior, their job, their family responsibilities. What then? What then? What do we do with this guilt? How do we advise this person? It's an interesting question. It depends who you go to, right? You might go to a therapist and say, no, this guilt it's impairing your behavior. You should not feel guilty. You should embrace who you are completely. You're not harming anyone. You might say that. It might be more nuanced. I'm being simple. Take another example. Same example, but it's not causing any guilt. It's not causing any guilt. And that the individual is functioning quite well in his or her day-to-day activities. But the act, for example, the habit, is haram. It's not causing any guilt. How do we counsel that person? Guilt can be a motivation, by the way, towards what? Tawbah, repentance. If you tell the person there's nothing for you to be guilty of, this is blameworthy. So we have to make sure our counselors, our Muslim counselors, know what they're talking about. Maybe they'll just kind of, say what the trend currently is and say, no, guilt is bad, guilt is bad, guilt is bad, and sing that song to our youth. And not realize that, no, guilt is a hikmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed in that fitri soul, that soul that is pure, and the guilt is there to motivate that person towards change, towards tawbah. Perhaps. Another example, a child feels so shy, I only have 2 minutes, that it is impeding her participation in gym class, for example. What do we do then? How do we counsel this young lady who's feeling this haya? The Prophet ﷺ said, al-haya min al-iman. Shyness, having some shame. Shame is a good thing, actually. Being shy is a good thing. But in the mental health discourse, in Western secular thought, that's not something that is embraced completely, is it? Imam Ghazali talks about how you are, as parents, to leverage the shyness and shame of your children to develop good habits. It's foundational. If you remove shame and shyness, you're going to have a very difficult time with your children and raising them. And he talks about concrete examples of the Ihya al-Deen. Right? How to leverage this feeling of being shy and shameful towards good behavior and good attitudes. Another example, someone was, say, in an illicit relationship for years with the opposite gender, or the same gender. And they have incredible regret that their heart is broken. The heart is completely broken. How do we counsel that person? They were in an illicit relationship. Their heart is broken. Many of us, perhaps, who are trained in Tasawwuf and identifying the sicknesses of the heart and the good traits of the heart and the states of the heart, and how all of these things are defined actually in Tasawwuf. One great resource is Risalah Foundation that was written over 1,000 years ago, that defines all of the states of the heart. Fear, what is fear? What is shame? What is tawbah? What is love? What is ikhlas? What is truthfulness? What is, and so on and so forth. So what do we do with this person? They're feeling incredible regret such that it breaks their heart. But we know that the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah is with the broken hearts. So is that a negative thing necessarily? Or we have a young man who is, or woman who is feeling so much. Khalas, this is the last comment. Back up. We're not talking about Tasawwuf today. They're having so much they're feeling broken before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're having regret, and they end up in despair. What's missing? What do they need? In our Islamic tradition, fear without hope leads to despair. Hope without fear leads to delusion. So how do we make that the balance between fear and hope in the individual? Okay? So it's very complex, and this is a huge topic. I didn't get to talk about Tasawwuf. Inshallah ta'ala, hopefully this initiative won't stop and will continue and will benefit, inshallah ta'ala, the words of the ulama and the brothers and sisters who are the experts in this field. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and benefit us, inshallah, from what we heard. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala Sidi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair.
नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम। हमारे शेख ने माशाअल्लाह बहुत ही مفید باتیں بتائی ہیں. وہ فرماتے ہیں کہ 4 باتیں ہیں جو پوری بحث کا خلاصہ ہے. نمبر 1 کہ مینٹل ہیلتھ کیا ہے، واٹ از مینٹل ہیلتھ. دوسرا یہ ہے کہ واٹ از مسنگ. تیسرا یہ ہے کہ واٹ از تصوف. چوتھا یہ ہے کہ تصوف ہماری زندگی میں کیسے آ سکتا ہے. تو انشاءاللہ 2-3 منٹ میں مجھے ساری باتیں بیان کرنی ہے. فرماتے ہیں کہ یہ جو ویسٹرن مینٹل ہیلتھ کا جو فوکس ہے وہ کچھ چیزیں ہیں. مطلب وہ لوگ یہ کہتے ہیں کہ آج پہلے زمانے میں ایسا ہوتا تھا کہ انسان کی میموری جو ہے، یعنی انسان کچھ یاد کرنا چاہتا ہے کچھ یاد نہیں کر سکتا، تو کہتے ہیں اس کے دماغ میں کمزوری ہے. بس اس کے بعد اور زیادہ جو ہے اس میں ایکسپینڈ کیا تو انہوں نے ایسا کہا کہ اب ججمنٹ آدمی پراپر طریقے سے نہیں لے سکتا. اسی طریقے سے جو ہے لینگویج، اس کی باڈی لینگویج یا اس کی زبان جو ہے وہ صحیح نہیں ہے، اس کے اندر کوئی ڈس آرڈر ہے مینٹل. اسی طریقے سے جو ہے کانشیسنس، کوئی کام کرنے سے پہلے آدمی اس کو برابر سوچتا نہیں. تو یہ کچھ چیزیں جو ہے انہوں نے بتائی ہے کہ بیماری اگر دماغی ہوگی تو انسان سے یہ چیزیں ہوگی. مثلا صحیح طریقے سے ججمنٹ نہیں لے سکتا، یہ نہیں کر سکتا، وہ نہیں کر سکتا. اور پھر اس کا سبب بتایا کہ کیمیکل ڈس آرڈر ہوگا باڈی میں، یہ کم ہو جائے گا، وہ زیادہ ہو گیا تو یہ سب ہو گیا. لیکن ہمارے یہاں مینٹل ہیلتھ کی ڈیفینیشن کیا ہے؟ کیا یہ لوگ جب ہم جاتے ہیں ان لوگوں کے پاس تو یہ لوگ ڈسکس کرتے ہیں کہ جو ہے کیونکہ ان کے یہاں یہی چیزیں ہوتی ہیں، یہی چیزیں علامتیں ہیں مینٹل ہیلتھ کی، اور یہی چیزیں افیکٹ کرے گی. یعنی یہ سائنس ظاہر ہو رہی ہے تو اس کے مینٹل ہیلتھ پر افیکٹ کرے گا، یعنی اس کو کچھ پرابلمس ہیں. لیکن اسلام میں ایسا نہیں ہے. اسلام اور اس کا تعلق وہ دماغ سے بتاتے ہیں، انسان میں روح کے ساتھ اس کا تعلق جوڑا ہے، اسی لیے اس کو صحہ نفسیہ عربی میں بولتے ہیں. فرماتے ہیں کہ یہ ڈاکٹرز جو ہیں، کیا اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ جب ہم بات کرتے ہیں پیشنٹ سے، جو مینٹل پیشنٹ ہوتا ہے، کیا اللہ تعالیٰ کی بات کرتے ہیں؟ کیا وہ لوگ بات کرتے ہیں فرشتوں کی؟ کیا وہ لوگ بات کرتے ہیں آخرت کی؟ کیا لوگ بات کرتے ہیں کہ انسان کے گناہ کا اس کے مینٹل ہیلتھ پہ کیا اثر ہوتا ہے؟ کیا لوگ بات کرتے ہیں کہ انسان اللہ کا اوبیڈینس بندہ جب بن جاتا ہے تو اس کی مینٹل ہیلتھ پر کوئی اثر ہوتا ہے؟ یعنی یہ ساری باتیں کیونکہ ان کے ٹاپک میں ہے ہی نہیں تو بات کرنے والے نہیں ہیں. اسی لیے ہمیں ضرورت ہے ایسے لوگ جو یہ ان لوگوں سے بھی ان کے پاس مینٹل ہیلتھ جو ہے جو انفارمیشن ہے ان کو بھی جاننے والے ہوں، اور ایک طرف دوسری طرف جو ہمارے دینی اعتبار سے مینٹل ہیلتھ یعنی کس چیزوں کی وجہ سے. جیسے مولانا نے مثال دی کہ ایک آدمی کی آنکھ میں ایک کچرا گر جاتا ہے تو اس کو نظر نہیں آتا. اسی طریقے سے جب گناہ کا کچرا دل کے اوپر گرتا ہے تو بھی انسان جو ہے اس کو صحیح غلط کا پتہ نہیں چلتا. اس لیے آپ سب ہمیشہ دعا کرتے تھے، اللہم ارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعہ وارنا الباطل باطلا. یا اللہ ہمیشہ میرے دل کو صاف رکھ تاکہ مجھے سچائی اور جو ہے صحیح راستہ نظر آئے. تو یہ کہتے ہیں بہت ہی اچھا قدم ہے کہ ہمارے پاس جو ہے ڈاکٹرز بھی ہیں، ہمارے پاس علماء بھی ہیں، اور دونوں جو ہے یہ کام کریں گے تو مسلم بچوں کو صحیح رہنمائی ملے گی. دوسری بات فرماتے ہیں کہ واٹ از مسنگ، اس لیے کہ 4 چیزیں وہ بیان کرتے ہیں کہ انسان کبھی کوئی کام کرتا ہے اس کے دل میں گلٹ پیدا ہوتا ہے کہ میں نے اچھا کام نہیں کیا، یا اس کے اندر حیا ہوتی ہے، یا اس کے اندر خوف ہوتا ہے، یا اس کے اندر جو ہے امید ہوتی ہے، اس کو خوف و رجا کہتے ہیں. اب جب یہ ان ڈاکٹرز کے پاس جاتا ہے، مثلا اس نے کوئی گناہ کا کام کیا، زنا کیا، یا اس نے مثلا جو ہے اسموک کیا، اور وہ ڈاکٹرز کے پاس جاتا ہے اور کہتا ہے کہ میں بہت گلٹی ہوں، میں مجھ سے بہت بڑی غلطی ہو گئی ہے. لیکن یہ جو ویسٹرن ڈاکٹرز ہیں ان کے یہاں تو یہ کوئی غلط چیز ہے ہی نہیں. تو وہ تو بچے کو کہے گا کہ تم کوئی غلط کام نہیں کر رہے ہو، تم تو صحیح کام کر رہے ہو، تم کو فیل کرنے کی کوئی ضرورت نہیں، فیل کرنے کی کوئی ضرورت نہیں. کوئی عورت ہے، لڑکی ہے، جم میں کھیلنا نہیں چاہتی، شرم حیا ہے اس کے اندر، وہ جائے گی کہ بھائی میرا جو ہے پرابلم ہے، میں جم میں نہیں کھیل سکتی. وہ کہیں گے یہ کوئی چیز نہیں ہے، آپ کو کوئی مینٹل ایشو نہیں، آپ برابر ہیں، یہ جو آپ سوچ رہی ہے وہ غلط ہے. تو ہمارے بچے جب ان ڈاکٹرز کے پاس جائیں گے تو وہ دھیرے دھیرے جو ہے ان کو گناہ پر جری کر دیں گے، ان کے اندر سے حیا چلی جائے گی، جو خوف اور رجا نیکی اور گناہوں کی وجہ سے وہ ختم ہو جائے گا۔ تو فرماتے ہیں کہ اس لیے بھی ضروری ہے کہ ہمارے علماء کے پاس اور ڈاکٹرز دونوں مل کر یہ کام کریں کہ کہاں پر بچے کو گل فیل کرنا چاہیے، وہ کہاں نہیں فیل کرنا، کہاں اس کو حیا اختیار کرنی چاہیے، کہاں نہیں اختیار، کہاں گناہ کرنے کے بعد جو خوف ہوتا ہے اس کے اندر امید اور رجا پیدا کرنی چاہیے، کہاں جو ہے بہت زیادہ امید ہے تو اس کے اندر خوف پیدا کرنا چاہیے۔ یہ دونوں باتیں اسی وقت ممکن ہے جب دونوں قسم کے لوگ ایک ساتھ کام کریں گے، ورنہ جو ہے صرف ان کے پاس جائیں گے تو بہت ہمارا دین کا نقصان ہو سکتا ہے۔ یہ ہمارے مولانا صاحب نے بیان کیا، انشاءاللہ اور ان کی بات اور بھی زیادہ لمبی ہو سکتی لیکن بہت کام تھا۔ اللہ تعالی ہمیں عمل کی توفیق عطا فرمائے۔